Sahana vavatu, sahanao bhunaktu, sahaviryang karavavahai, tejasvina vadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Last week we were cut short on a story, and I will continue that story again. It was a story called The Musician and the Poor Boy. And the intention of the story was to show us that unlike what we usually think, that our entire life is pre-written and pre-scripted, and we randomly get assigned these, moments of joy and moments of, sometimes stress, it's not random at all. It is completely your own design. And so the story started with a poor boy who was, very intelligent, and he was given a position in Stanford University to study. And he didn't have the money to get his education. But there was a musician nearby who was a pianist, and he had some, liking for this musician. So he thought, why don't I go and arrange this musician's concert? Why don't I take care of his tickets and be his organizer? And then whatever money is left over, right, he can, help me, with my tuition fees. And so the musician agreed to this, and he let the boy, organize his tickets. Now, after the music, festival was successful and thousands of people showed up, the boy counted and gave all the ticket proceed money to the musician and the logistics. So there was a lot of money that had to go for paying the staff members and so on. And the boy was all throughout obviously hoping that after all of this, there will be some money left for him that he can use. And there was no money left. And so he was very concerned. The whole thing was just to help him get to the Stanford University. So he goes to the manager and says, manager, I, don't have anything left for me, and I really need to go to Stanford University. This is my lifelong dream. Can you help me? And the manager said, well, let me speak to this musician, who was a very busy man. And the musician listened to the story, and he felt the need and the urgency for this boy to attend the school. And so he decided to waive his performance fees and all of it and gave it to the boy. And the boy was exhilarated. So the boy was very grateful for this. Now, about 20 to 25 years later, the boy, this boy who, went to Stanford University now, he was actually the United States president, while the musician was the president of Poland. And after World War II, Poland was going through a drought, and so there were, catastrophes, and people were, not able to move because the infrastructure was damaged, and the conditions were not completely conducive for a life. And so the president of Poland had to ask for aid, and the first country that responded was the United States. And the United States sent a lot of supplies to Poland, and it helped them out with their infrastructure, with their food, with their, various facilities that they required to rebuild. And the president of Poland was very grateful, so he thought he needed to go to the United States and thank the president. So he flew over, and I don't know if he flew over or took the ship, because this was a long time ago. And he said, look, I just owe you so much gratitude for helping us out. You really helped our entire nation out. You have no idea how much your, small acts of kindness actually reached out and gave us, a boost in economy and livelihood and so on. And then the United States president says, no, actually, I want to extend my gratitude to you. Why? Said the president of Poland. Because I'm actually that boy from Stanford who you helped to go and, fulfill my dream. Now, whether this is a true story or fictional story. I would say it's more of a fictional story. That's not the point. The point is, this story shows you now that though you may think that I am rewarded, right, 20 to 25 years later by random chance, that is not the case. It's not a random chance. It's just that Ishvara doesn't operate in a random cause and effect relationship. It is the completely impersonal cause and effect relationship that you come to experience the effects of your doing 20 to 30 years later. Now, whether you remember why you deserve it or not, that's not the point. The point is there is no random assignment to what your life is today. And so this shows you that this impersonal law that we are governed by, it doesn't reward you out of its own, right, likes or dislikes. It rewards you because there was a you who happens to be, very righteous, and you did certain things in the past, which now you come to experience those rewards. So it shows you that you tell Ishvara what to author. Ishvara is the author of life, of everyone's life, of your life, of my life, of your neighbor's life, of your mother's life, of your father's life, of your boss's life. He authors everyone's life. But now, who tells the author what to write? It's not Ishvara. Ishvara is not telling of his own discretion what he is going to write for you. You are the one that has been writing the story since beginningless time. And Ishvara is just extending his helping hand and saying, okay, that's what you're asking. This is what you have done according to your discretion years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And this is the kind of life that I am now writing for you. So when you come to see this, then this whole need to blame and to feel like a victim, like how my life is not working out, or things should be better, or things are not good enough, this whole thing, now having to understand that this cause and effect relationship is completely impersonal, and it's not a fixed script. There is no fixed script out there that is just waiting to play out for you. This notion we have to start to release, because I know it's deeply entrenched in the mind, where there is some script, and I'm just here in this moment today, waiting for tomorrow's script to work out. See, there is a certain truth to that, but at the same time, the script is constantly being rewritten by your causes today. Not only of the past or of yesterday, but even of today. So in that sense, the script is dynamic. So this means it's never too late. There's never a time when Ishvara says, your chapter has been written out, and there's a ginormous full stop, and there's nothing after that. There is no full stop in your story. The story is continuing. So this means that all throughout this time, every day, you had the capacity to write a new script in your life, and you still have that capacity right now. And that blank page that is waiting there for you, it can be filled with whatever you ask today, or you start asking today, day by day. And that blank page, suppose in 5 years, what will be written in your blank page 5 years from now? Interesting question. So we all have a blank page, okay? 5 years from now. What kind of things would you like written in this 5-year page? Think about it. That's what we call potential. That page is in potential, and that potential is given to you. Now, the highest potential that you can, of course, exercise is to bring this reality into your life, bring Ishvara into your life, and then start to relate to the world in a more truthful manner, in a manner that's more conducive with the truth. to recognize your fullness, to recognize your nature, and then live from that place. That's the highest potential that you can exercise. So knowing that, if you are the writer, if you are your body and mind is the doer of this script, then that means that right now it's not too late. So if there is some thought, some unconscious idea that says, no, I'm too old, it's gone. I should have done this, started this journey 10 years ago. It's too late for me. This is false. If there's a narrative that says, no, my mind is, everything's going over my head, it's too late. This drops out. If there's a narrative that says, no, I'm too young, or I'm a man, or I'm a woman, or I live in a family that doesn't let me exercise my full potential, that drags me down, it's not too late. Because all throughout this time, the blank page remains blank until you choose to put certain causes, just like the musician did. Out of his goodness of, his heart, he helped out. And so by that nature, he gained a certain amount of, rewards in his life. So who is it that rewards you? Is it God, or is it you by your own very actions that you are writing even today? You see, it is you. Then what place does Ishvara have in your life? Ishvara, as we said, is the author. He's the one that provides the pen, provides the neurons, provides the thoughts, provides the air to breathe, provides the body to move from place to place. He provides that. He provides you the food. He provides you the teacher, the teaching. He provides you everything. How I, according to my discretion, use that is what will happen in the future. So this means that though you cannot quite predict the future, you can infer certain kind of future based on your daily lifestyle. So on the one hand, I can't say I know what's going to happen 5 years from now. You can't say that. But on the other hand, you can kind of assess based on the trajectory that you are currently on, that trajectory must in some way, today's trajectory must in some way be connected to the result of 5 years from now. So like this, we come to see that you're not completely just a little puppet whose script is just playing out, to which we then say it is my karma. My life is just, one big, exhaustion of punyam and papam. That is true. But at the same time, your life is just one big opportunity to take that pen, to call your arm, to take that resource called your legs and your mouth and your speech, and to exercise it in a way that fills that page for you. So all throughout, you are the one that's always been the center of your life, writing ultimately your own script, deciding what kind of a 5 year from now lifestyle you will have. So this means it's an important message, because we need to get reminded every once in a while, no matter what situation you and I are put in, no matter who's around you, what environment you're surrounded by, what people are there, what they're saying to you, who's pulling you down, who's uplifting you. Ultimately, the last person who has the last say is you. Really, this is a fact. The one who has the power to say no or yes, ultimately it is you. Now, sometimes what happens is, because we invested so many years in a particular relationship or a particular field of study, what happens is the mind gets a little bit rigid. And so it says, I don't want to release that. I've spent too much time in a 30-year pursuit. But if you really think about it, if you just for a moment get objective and ask one simple question, what is more important? My own attachment and my own pride in having spent 30 years in one particular whatever philosophy, or what is the real center here? Is it the truth, or is it holding on to past ideas? It's always going to be the truth. And the truth is that which requires a certain open-mindedness. It requires flexibility, like a chameleon. It requires, that's a nice word, flexibility. Flexibility means recognizing, yes, brain may be old, maybe 50 or 60 or whatever, 70. It doesn't matter. In fact, I know some people who are, 80, and they're learning a new language. They have more commitment than you and I right now put together. Learning a language every day. Wake up 1 hour, learning a new word, jogging for maybe 10 minutes. 80 years old. In fact, 80 is almost young nowadays, actually, because I know several 80-year-olds who are, this is amazing. They're going down the stairs without holding onto the rail. I'm going, what kind of a life do you live to be this flexible? It's like, just stay healthy, just move and do the usual things. There's no real advice to give you. Just be a person who you always were. Move around, a little bit of exercise, be involved. And I'm like, this is amazing. You're 80 years old. Your brain is sharper than mine. How is this possible? What do you do? Nothing. I just get involved. I have my little thing in the morning. I wake up. I got my routine. I chant the Gita. I do some Vedic chanting. Attend classes. I teach a little bit here and there. I get involved in communities. I'm like, is that simple? There's no magic rule. It's that simple. So if an 80 to 85 to 90-year-old, I'm sure there's even 90-year-olds, because the oldest I've met is 80-year-olds. Lorena's shaking her head. So there must be a 90-year-old, right? Who is as, right, decently flexible, decently enthusiastic about life. Now, if they can do that, they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the guru even. Then what would you like to say about yourself now? The whole thing, I can't. I want and I can't. So the whole I can't and I want is just a learned behavior. That's it. A learned behavior that any moment you can just equally say to your mind, look, I acknowledge that there is a I can't and I want and I'm too whatever, but that served me for a while. It's taught me certain lessons. But the fact is, until last breath, any moment I have the chance to change my life around. Any moment I have the chance to completely shift my perspective. When I walk out my door of the house, I have a chance to perceive the whole world differently. And that chance only ends in the last breath. Until then, unless you're, God forbid, but unless you're ill in some manner, that's not possible. But having that kind of a mind, that kind of a chance, you can do this. In fact, you will do this. In fact, you better do this. I'll be watching you. Okay. So this is how it is. Okay. So knowing that the kind of life is given to you, we have to acknowledge what place Ishvara has in your life. It is not there to hinder you or to not hinder you. This is an incorrect understanding of God. God is just an impersonal order that manifests as laws such as gravity. Gravity is not there to kill you or to help you. It's just there. But it's also there is a program that lets you know what is common sense. So obviously, I'm not going to jump off a building. So gravity, like any law, like psychological laws, it's just there. Whether I feed my mind with news of negative nature, what's going to happen if you do that consistently for 15 days? You know the answer to that. It's going to take on a certain mental condition, and your reality will be consistent with what kind of stuff you've been feeding in your inner psychology. So the inner psychology is not punishing you. You're just choosing based on a habitual basis what to influence and how to influence the psychology. In that same way, the inner psychology is available to you by feeding it the right kind of wisdom, and slowly, slowly, brick by brick, you're able to start to think in a very creative fashion, in a very new, fresh, discerning manner. And this is absolutely possible for you. There's not one being, as I said, unless there's a real big reason to, that is not capable to do this. So the only thing that's standing between you and that blank page is self-imposed limitations, learned behavior. And like I said, even if it's learned, it doesn't matter, because any moment you can say, thank you, this has been going on in my life for 20, 30 years. Just acknowledging it, that's enough. You don't even have to do anything about it. Just acknowledging it, having a genuine intention for it to start to go away, and you can see the results slowly start to make you more available to new, new situations, new opportunities. Yes, Ray.
When you say that you have the choice, you have the ability to choose, can you clarify for me which you're referring to?
Yeah. Because we're in chapter 4 right now, we're still in that very early, we're able to still speak, the body mind, which is the instrument, which is capable of discerning, assessing black, white, grays of shade in the light of my own values, in the light of the environment, what is needed right now. What relationship do I have to this environment? What are my strengths and weaknesses? All this word my and your at this particular level, stage, means the body-mind instrument. So obviously it cannot be awareness, because awareness has no mouth, has no mind to think, has no, it's not an instrument. It is that which is the truth of all things. So it's a very good question, Ray, because we have to be able to interchange between the two orders of reality. One, which is that which is the all-pervasive reality, awareness, and at the same time, there is a person, there is a thinker, there is a walker, there is an inquirer. So this is the beautiful thing about Vedanta. You're able to interchange the two without losing track of either, because that's what objectivity really means. That means I'm able to see the reality, but I also acknowledge that there is a person, there is a thinker, walker, doer, what we call enjoyer. See, suppose I say this to you. Suppose you say this to me, for example. There's just only awareness. Why should I do anything? This is a very strange question. There is only awareness. Why should I do anything? See, the problem with this question is that if there's only awareness, why should I do anything? See, you were always a non-actor in the first place. You were always that actionless, all-pervasive awareness. But at the same time, there is a connection that you come temporarily for 80 years, 80 or 90 years, that you have an intimate connection with one entity, more so than any other entity. And that entity is your name, called Ray, called Andre. So we have to honor that entity. That entity is still an instrument of the Lord, who has incredible talents that can put itself into the world and contribute. Because the truth is, for the longest amount of time, Ishvara has been contributing to you and has given you so much that in one life, you have reached Ishvara himself. So now, if you really come to appreciate the immensity of that statement, that here I was, even though I was never the small being, but thinking I was a small being, having the sincerity to come out of this false idea that I'm this small being, Ishvara listened and offered itself through the scriptures, through the pramana, through the capacity to inquire, to assess, to come to the light of the truth, through the guru. All of that was Ishvara. So let's not think of Ishvara as some being out there who's just blessing us from a distance. Ishvara is the very air you breathe. So Ishvara, in that sense, is blessing you every single breath. Ishvara is the very words that you're hearing right now. So in that sense, Ishvara is the very teacher. Ishvara is the very capacity to process what is being said right now and to, in some way, able to relate to it. That is also Ishvara. So coming to a point of that healthy state of a human nature, you naturally want to reach out and contribute. That is the healthiest expression of a human being. Every person, I tell you. In fact, let's put people aside for a moment. Just look at animals and look at nature, because animals and nature don't have a concept of, I'm going to get more from me and less for you. They don't have that. They're just completely, almost forcefully, you can say, but completely in line with the natural state of affairs, the natural harmony of things. And if you observe the microbial world, the world of insects, the world of mammals, fish, of plants, of like the bees and the pollination process, what can you observe? If there's one commonality throughout the entire world of nature, what can you observe?
There's an order.
There is an order, there is a structure, there is harmony, there is a automatic self-balancing system. It's amazing. It's built in. We as human beings have a problem balancing our own psychology. And yet nature is natural at it, because that's what nature means. That which is natural, that which is being itself. And so when you look at nature, every organism in it just offers itself. It offers, like the deer. It knows there's a crocodile in the pond, and the deer just walks over and just, in a very cute fashion, starts to drink the water, knowing any moment, hey, the crocodile can snatch me up, but anyway, I'm going to offer myself and I'm going to risk it. Now imagine a selfish deer and says to the other deer, just bring some water. I'm just going to wait here in the safari and go get a bucket, put it on your lower jaw and bring it over. A deer doesn't do that, because there's a certain order, a certain trust in this harmony, which we, through our own discretion or lack of it, have lost. And because we lost that discretion, then we say, oh, the world therefore needs to appease me. The deer has to bring the bucket over to me. I don't have to do anything. So in that sense, though we have the endless resources of today's world, in one ways, it's also made us disconnected from nature, because we don't have to anymore go out there and risk it. And, with humility and ask, we just say, just click one click order button. Amazon brings your stuff over. You don't have to say even hello to the driver anymore. It's just completely automated. And then slowly, slowly, we lose that natural contributing intelligence that we all have. So the point of this is that when you start to clean up your own stuff, all those programs, how I have to get more for me and less for you because I'm a little individual who's there to survive. When that whole survival instinct starts to reduce, what happens to the human being at the level of the body-mind instrument, which Ray has asked about? You start to be less of a taker and more of a contributor. This is a natural expression of a healthy human heart. We can also call it empathy, reaching out. In fact, that's the largest indicator of maturity. When it's less and less of me, for me, what can I get out of this? Let me just stand back and not do anything and let everyone else do the parts. 2, let me get involved. You know what? Giving yourself the green light, the permission slip to say yes, that is mature. That's a huge step in one's journey of spirituality. So if you ever want to know what is one guaranteed way of spiritual progress, suppose you say, am I progressing? It's very simple. What is your ratio between taker to contributor? The natural reaching out. That is one lovely indicator of knowing that it's not about me anymore. Recognizing that my nature as a human being is to contribute, because that, in that sense, you're aligned, as Lorena said, with the order. You're aligned to the natural order. And what happens then when you're aligned to the natural order? Just like the musician who did something out of his goodness of his heart to give in areas that are not necessarily related to your profession. He's a Stanford, kid. I have nothing in common with him, but he's still within Ishwara's order. So when you reach out to those who are not necessarily in your profession, because you are within the order, it's designed in such a way that it comes back to you. And the more it comes back to you, the more punyam you get in your life, the easier life becomes, the easier it is to relate and be grateful for things that you are given, to the point where you say, life is just so smooth. It's so easy. And people say, what did you do? What's your secret? And then what do you tell them? I have no secret, because it's not one thing. It's a collection of things. And it's not one thing in 1 year. It is a collection of many things for 20 plus years. Now, when you tell the truth to someone that's not completely ready, what do they say? Oh, no, do you have like a shortcut? Give me like a quick shortcut. And then you say to them, look, I'm not your guy. I'm not your woman, right? Go somewhere else. But when you do get those shortcuts, you might benefit in some way. And then you'll find out that the shortcut isn't really that rewarding. And then when you find that out, then you'll be more in a favor of something that requires more investment of your time. Something that makes the world fade out to the point where it's only you and that. And so that becomes now a rewarding process. We're able to just tune out the world and zone out. Does anyone have an experience of that? Zoning out? You're doing something and you've zoned out. And you look at the clock and you go, my goodness, 10 hours have gone by. Oh, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to continue this. Now, of course, as we spoke in last session, this can be potentially a binding vasana, binding desire there, which you then justify as, my passion. So it's always a harmony there to balance out. But coming back to the thread, so the natural order is that you are a participant in this universe. And the more you participate, the more the universe rewards you back. And rewards you back how? With clarity, with maturity. And the more maturity and clarity we enjoy, then the world perception and difficult situations become so much easier to bear. In my experience, it's not very easy to bring this knowledge when there's an actual, when you're caught up in the heat of the moment. Do you relate to this? When you're in the heat of the moment and you're tired and you're exhausted and you're not thinking very straight, and all you just want is just things to go your way. Let's get real here. You want things to go your way because you're just tired and you don't have the capacity for discussion and philosophy and thinking. And in my experience, now you tell me maybe it's different for you, it's not entirely always appropriate to bring philosophy in those times when you just need to solve the situation out. In fact, it's almost unnatural to now you're stuck somewhere like the airport, or you have some car traffic or some traffic jam, and now you're in the car and you're thinking, this is all Ishvara's order. This is all maybe a little bit of my papam that I'm exhausting right now. And is it like this for you? Like, do you actually do this? Or you more likely respond to the moment like a natural human being? See, suppose I tell you this image, right? How we usually see in the scriptures. The wise person is completely equanimous at all times, right? They're completely at peace. And they have this, samatvam, yoga uchyate. They have a mind of composure. And you compare yourself to that wisdom, and you see that 90% of the time, you're not even anywhere close to that. But the teacher then keeps on giving you this idea, this is how you're supposed to be. And now you go and say, okay, great, that's how I'm supposed to be. So now let me pretend next time something happens, I'm just going to put on this fake composure of equanimity. But inside, you're being eaten alive. But on the outside, you're giving this idea that you're completely at ease. That's not spirituality. Spirituality is brutal honesty. Where are you truly? Where are you personally truly? How are you truly feeling? That is the reality. That's where I start. That's my journey. From there, I start onwards. Instead of going, no, I shouldn't be here. Let me consult the Gita. Okay, so that's not how a wise person is. See, the Gita has a very good point. They're giving you a vision. It's something to strive for. But at the same time, we cannot use wisdom to override your existing state of mind because you have no growth there. Every state of mind gives you a chance to reflect upon it a little bit, gives you a chance to be with that moment so that when the heat of the moment has ended and when you finally have time to sit down and when things have, slightly repaired themselves, then you can say, okay, this is, or this was, it's no longer is, but this was everything that happened within Ishvara's order. I find this, personally, in my experience, much more realistic than in the heat of the moment, when you generally don't feel like philosophizing or saying that it's all just Ishvara's order and it's all just awareness. I find this much more realistic. And then when you are in that moment of composure, when the heat of the emotion has ended, then you can bring in the knowledge and then reflect back, okay, How could I have acted instead? What was the right way in those small, minute situations that I could have acted? Reflecting upon it a little bit, just even 60 seconds or 5 minutes. And you know what happens next time when that similar situation happens? You're now less disturbed by it. Why? Because you've taken the time, 60 seconds, 5 minutes, to reflect upon that situation that was unpleasant a couple of hours ago, or usually it's days ago or weeks ago. Now, next time it happens, guess what happens? You have more equanimity. But again, in that equanimity, there is an emotion of this hot emotion, isn't there? So now again, you do what you have to do. You say what you have to say. Maybe there's anger. Maybe there's even cursing. Who knows? Maybe there's all of that. Again, when the situation has calmed itself down, I go back, sit down, and I say, okay, let me take a moment. What happened? Okay, they're just doing their work. They're doing their part. They're not really evil. They're not, people there to give me a hard time. They're just doing their part. And that's how the system is. That's how the culture is. That's how the state of affairs are. So, okay, so I too have learned something. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to be, maybe calmer next time. Again, what have you done now? You have used a difficult life situation, a realistic life situation that was customized just for you. You've unwrapped it. And you said, what learning, what teaching is there in it for me? That's called Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. Everything that ever happens to you is a gift to be unwrapped, looked inside for a moment. That's what you do with a gift. You always look inside, don't you? You don't put it on the side. That's rude. You look inside the gift and you go, okay, what's this? What color is this? What is this? And you look into it, you inquire a little bit about it. Every time you do that and you put this thing back into the box, that's all that Krishna is asking, to start to make these dramatic perceptual changes in your life. Now, the next time the same or similar situation happens that is difficult, what happens now? You're even less disturbed by it. There is more equanimity. So notice what we're doing. We are using every difficult situation to look inside it, because when you look inside that gift alone will be a gift in the future called equanimity. So this is Ishwara's way of helping you to make something of your life according to the situations, the people around you, and of course, how many lives you positively touch. This too will have a dramatic change in your life. Now, someone had a hand up, Jacob?
Yeah, I did, but it's interesting. You answered the question that I had, and I didn't need to say it actually. So, but it was exactly what you were saying. Like, I was gonna say, if you had any advice when it's like I can see that there's a moment happening where there's like some habit that's not particularly helpful to the body or to the mind, and it's like some loop that just repeats itself over and over again, and I can see that it's happening, and like what essentially to do with that. But I feel that was just the answer.
Good.
I mean, that tends to be the answer for most things, is just look at it. Like pay attention to it.
Let's look at it. Now, the next verse, Krishna will remind Arjuna, verse 15, in order to solidify this knowledge of your nature and to bring Ishvara more into your life and to have more clarity, you need to undo your thinking patterns. Evam jnatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubhi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvaih purvataram kritam.
So, knowing me in this manner, even seekers of ancient times performed action. Therefore, performed action indeed, as even it was done by those who came before in the ancient past.
So what do we say in verse 14 last week, the word me? He said in verse 14, actions do not affect me. And now he says, knowing me in this manner. So knowing me, the one for whom actions do not affect. Why do actions not affect me? Because I am all that is. There is no second thing to affect me. Now, the second definition is Ishvara, and this is the intelligence. So definition one is Atma, and definition two is Ishvara. And we said that Ishvara, this intelligence, this order that manifests as laws and forms, and those forms are moved about and coordinated by those laws. Ishvara, we said, is not doing your life. There's no one out there who's now commanding and making your life, what you don't want it to be. All you're doing is you're asking Ishvara for a helping hand. And that's the hand that Ishvara extends out. It says, okay, so you want a hand of health? I will extend a hand, says Ishvara, called health. Now read off my palm and says, exercise a little bit, do some breathing, do some meditation. And then you can say, Ishvara, I want a hand for bringing more of you into my life. I want more devotion, bhakti in my life. And now Ishvara extends his hand and says, here's my hand called bhakti. Now read off my hand everything that's required to bring me into your life, such as recognizing my presence in the form of things, in the form of laws, in the form of psychology and physiology and so on. So see, if there's one good or useful way to understand Ishvara, it goes like this. Suppose I ask you, see, last week we were a little bit technical. What is Ishvara? We said it's the intelligence. Okay. But here's another way, a more devotional way to understand Ishvara. Suppose I ask you, what is Ishvara? It is a platform where self-growth and self-discovery happens. This whole place called Earth that you're walking on, it's just a big school where self-growth and self-discovery happens. Self-growth to discover your potential, discover your talents, to exercise your talents. Isn't that true? The whole life is just really just one big platform where self-growth is possible. And not only self-growth, but also self-discovery. I need to discover what is the nature of this self that I thought needs to grow or sometimes not grow. So I need to discover the nature of the self. So what is Ishvara? It's a platform. And are you outside this platform? Never. You are always a participant in this platform. And what is this platform? What's the nature of this platform? It is for self-growth and self-discovery. And when is this platform not available to you? Never. When is it available to you? Always. Every time you wake up, from that moment on, it's a platform for self-growth and self-discovery. Can you ever be outside this platform? Not unless you make it so. Because after all, you're the one who asks Ishvara's hand for distraction, for sometimes excessive entertainment or whatever it is. So all the time you're given a platform, and this platform can lead you to the highest. It is entirely up to you. Therefore, knowing me in this manner as either consciousness or Ishvara, what happens now? Next statement, even seekers of ancient time performed action, just like we are performing action today. Therefore, perform action indeed, because you're not outside my order. And every action will lead you to self-growth and self-discovery. Now, you can interpret this statement in two ways. The first is, who are these seekers? So let's put it first one. They are mumukshus. A mumukshu is someone who wants liberation. That means they're still exploring different options, but they know that the world of forms and sounds and tastes and smells and tactile feedback cannot quite give me what I want. I want limitlessness. Now, I don't know how to pursue that, but what I do know is I want limitlessness, whatever that infinity is at that moment. That's mumukshu. And the mumukshu, what does the mumukshu want? Ultimately, to purify his or her mind. Because they recognize, whether they acknowledge it or not, the way to understand this is I have to mature up. Maturity or purifying the mind, that go hand in hand. Now, to do this, what happens? I come on earth and I create friction with you. Isn't this what happens with everyone? Does someone not have friction? You come on earth and you have no friction whatsoever. Whoever is born creates friction with others. Isn't this right? No one's exempt from this. Now, what happens when you create friction with others? Sparks fly, right? Now, those sparks sometimes are very bright, and then you have to do something about it. It's too much friction. So you have to look inside yourself and say, do I want this? What kind of a person do I want to be? To create friction, to continue this friction, or reduce the amount of friction that I create? Now, when you say to reduce, because there's an innate program in you that's always leading you towards peace and harmony, naturally you choose peace and harmony. So knowing this, you develop humility, reduce your biases, start to look inside your, your own mind for all of these, distortions that are going on. Why? Because you're creating friction and others are creating friction with you. Otherwise, there's no way to grow. If you came here and you had no friction with anyone, would you ever grow? No. You would unknowingly remain at your reference point thinking it's the highest there is to attain, because you would have no contrast to something better. So therefore you would say, it's like telling to a teenager who's playing computer games all day, and you say to him or her, there's actually a better lifestyle than just 5 hours a day on the computer. And what do they say to you? No, there isn't. This is the best thing there is. Why? Because they haven't lived out life. When they live out life, they see the computer game, there's something much better than that. So now when I come and create friction with you and you with me, we create sparks, and those sparks cause us to experience pain or discomfort or joys at the same time. And we say, things need to change. This is why no one can help but to keep on growing, at least if you have a decently pure mind. Because you always want to come to your nature. And every time there's a friction, right, you say something needs to change. Of course. Because what you ultimately want is to come back to your ultimate nature. So, those things that are you are dearly holding on to. Do you know these things? Like there's always something that you're dearly holding on to because it's very important and you treasure it a lot. Whatever it is, it could be a relationship or a thing or an object, an experience or a house or a place you live in or a food that you eat or a lifestyle or, a weekly holiday or whatever it is, you dearly hold on to it. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. It becomes a potential issue is when it starts to take and distort your perception of what other possibilities there might be in the world. Because I'm holding so dearly onto one particular thing, what does it do? It robs me from exploring other options. It robs me from exercising this platform of self-growth and self-discovery. Therefore, it's okay to have dearly held onto things, but at the same time, you have to inquire, what is the potential cost of this? You see, we're not here. See, ultimately, you're completely free of everything. You're free of your body, of your thoughts, your emotions, of every relationship. You have no connection to anyone. That's the truth. That's the final truth. So now, in the light of that truth, I have to now assess what is the cost of dearly holding on to things. When my nature in actuality is freedom, total freedom from everything, which is what I'm doing through every conversation, through every interaction. I'm ultimately looking for freedom. Is anyone looking to get bound further? Is this what we do through actions? To get pulled down more, to feel heavier, to get more bound? Or you're looking for total freedom? Because that's your nature. That's who you are. That's why you look for that which you are. Thus, in this way, we recognize those things that are those events or stories pulling us down, and then you can start to rewire them, start to retell the story. Because as we said in the beginning, what are those self-imposed limitations? What's another word for a self-imposed limitation? Story. That's what sustains a self-imposed limitation. A story, a narrative that I'm retelling myself again and again. And what happens to the retelling of a story? It determines your focus. And what your focus is aligned to is what your reality is like. Your focus determines your reality. Your reality determines your experience. What determines my focus? The story that I keep telling myself again and again. You see, reality is just reality. But where do I turn my head? What do I see depends on my focus. What determines my focus? The stories that I'm telling myself that are causing me to dearly hold on to one particular belief system because it's so comfortable. But in truth, you're not really here to experience comfort. What has comfort gotten you so far? A new life. That's what we've all been doing before, just feeling comfortable all life long, a new life. So ultimately, this is not a place to come to feel comfortable. Is that news for you? Hey, I came to Earth to feel comfortable. No, this is a place of self-growth and self-discovery. Is self-growth and self-discovery easy? Is it effortless? No. It is sometimes uncomfortable, but is it worth it? Absolutely. Because as we said, 20 to 35 years later, you look at your blank page and you find really good things written on it. Why? Because of your self-growth and self-discovery pursuit. In that sense, every time you say yes to an opportunity, what happens? That opportunity throws you new challenges, new discomforts, and those discomforts become your angels. Interesting, isn't it? Discomfort is actually your teacher. No discomfort, no teacher. You know, if you really want to make a difference, you know what you do? It's very simple. You study so hard, you stay up so long until your back hurts, until your eyes are just, watering. You cannot see anymore, until your muscles hurt, until there's just a place where you just want to go to sleep because you're so tired, because you worked so hard. Sometimes, you see, the problem is we get too comfortable and we say, I've studied for 10 minutes, enough. And we feel good about that, like I've done a big thing. But you know what? When have you really made a real difference? What if I were to challenge you on that? The real difference is when you actually feel the pain. Maybe this is why sometimes seminars have a big place or a big change in people's, I used to go to so many seminars and they were intense, I tell you, 10 days of intense work. Like you were crying, you were punching a pillow, you were hugging others, you were just, giving them a high five. And we're all exhausted at the end of those 5 to 10 days. And we all come out with a perceptual change because it was not easy. We didn't get comfort in there, we got to work. So what if I were to challenge you for once and say, if you want real change, then instead of resorting to this familiarity mode where I'm just going to sit down, it's my house, a cup of coffee on the side, it's all easy, and change that around into, let me force myself just 5 minutes longer. Let me put a timer on, no matter what, I'm not going to leave until this timer is finished. No pain, no gain sometimes. That also has a place. You want gain? Sometimes it is requiring you to put pain into it, to put the discomfort into it. You want to study? Get up early. No matter what, take a book in front of you and say, for 1 hour straight, I'm going to finish this, no matter what. I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do it. 10 minutes of meditation, just sit down, close eyes, and no matter how much there's struggle, just go through those 10 minutes. Not pleasant, but every time you break through that painful event, you might be surprised how much easier it becomes next time. Why are we performing this analysis of this, mind purity, these interpretation one, these mukshus who are wanting liberation? Why so much work? Because what's the issue? It's the mind. And the mind tends to think in black or white. I'll give you an example of black or white thinking. See, sometimes when I hear about Gandhi, there's 2 opinions. One of them is he, reformed India. He reached out. He was very compassionate. He was, an example of reaching out. That's opinion number one. Opinion number two, some of us know, what is it? Oh, he was, he is not good at all, right? He, assassinated. He was a cause for the death of another freedom fighter. He extended the India's non-independence. He actually created more chaos, inculcated a culture, created more damage. This is what I hear, these two opinions. That's black or white thinking. Is it really that superficial? Is it really just that simple? When you have a man in that age, none of us lived, none of us know how hard it was in that age, in that political system, with those kinds of thinking people. Is it really that simple, or there's so much more that went in between? Perhaps one can change that, black or white, and say, everyone's just doing what they can according to their genuine need to reach out and make a difference. And mistakes get made. Other people suffer, right? Others benefit. But ultimately, this story has always been going on. It will never end. And he's just one of the many participants in this vast story that's always being written. Maybe that's one place better than just two opinions. One, he's a compassionate person. Two, he is, I wish, he never existed. That's it. It's like so superficial. So every time we engage in this kind of superficial thinking, what happens? You train your mind to think like this. And yet, all that is here is Ishvara. And is Ishvara just black or white? Or is Ishvara many shades of gray? Many levels of realities. So what am I showing you here? How we think about simple things is how we think about everything. So what is that one thing in your life that you may have this kind of a black or white? It's like this or it's like that, and there's nothing in between. What is that? Because we all have one thing. What is that one thing for you that might be reminding you to stay at a surface level? Because that's where comfort resides. But we're not here for comfort. We're here for self-growth and self-discovery.
I have a question. My question is that we are saying our emphasis is always on self-growth and self-discovery. Why not on the growth of the society, growth of the group, and growth of the people in general, rather than myself as an individual? What is more important?
Because self-growth includes the growth of the other person too. That's what true self-growth means. So this means we have to redefine the word self-growth. Self-growth, see, when you go out and reach, you also get friction with others. And that friction causes you to relook into your own narratives and change the story. So this means I need the participation of others. I need to reach out and learn about human behavior, learn about other people's perceptions and other people's cultures in order to grow. But at the same time, in so doing, I'm also reaching out and help. So as we said earlier in the conversation, the true mark of a healthy human being, the one that exercises empathy, is the one that reaches out into the world. And reaching out into the world, how can you not benefit also? Therefore, it's true. Self-growth, good, we redefine the word, truly also involves reaching out, loka sangraha.
I have a counter question. Suppose there is a human being, he spent all his life like Raman Maharshi or anyone else, only concentrating and learning about himself and learning about God. And there is another human being who has spent all his life in doing good for the society. Now, who's better?
In about 10 verses from now, we will talk about the two lifestyles, one of a karma yogi and second of a sannyasi. The path is the same, moksha, but the way to get there is different. And there's no superior, as Krishna would say, or inferior. There's only a way that is in line with your svabhava, your nature, your prarabdha, and your swadharma. Where you're located, with whom you're located, what is your natural disposition, what is your natural state of mind, what are you attracted to? Are you more of a person that withdraws and you're supported by the society for the sake of sannyasa, for the sake of withdrawal, but also you have a mind predisposed for inquiry. Because otherwise, if you just go and become a sannyasa without a support of the society, then what becomes now the common denominating thinking in that person's mind? How will I survive? Where will I get my next food from? Therefore, There's no superior or inferior according to Krishna's words, as we will see in about 10 verses from now. All that really matters is what is your way of pursuit? What makes more sense to you according to your nature? And Krishna would then say further, for most people, it is more of a karma yogi. Why? Because especially today's society, we are very busy, we are very, surrounded by different media and, responsibilities and duties, and everyone has some part to play somewhere, right? And every time you play your part, again, you are in a platform of self-growth and self-discovery. It makes you unload your emotional burdens because you get a chance to see, where are my blind spots? Where are my shortcomings? And I need the society to let me know. Without the society, how will I know? Otherwise, I can sit down and be very comfortable and give myself an impression that I'm very sophisticated, very advanced in my thinking. But all those unconscious, subconscious patterns, unresolved by nature, are lurking deep down. And from them, what's bubbling forward into my mind? I can't, I want, I'll fail, this is not good enough, I'm impatient. Ramana Maharishi, I'll never be like him, right? So now we start to compare ourselves to others. And where is this bubbling from? Those patterns which I never got the chance to see because I am not involved in the world. So what Krishna does in this entire book is keeps on reminding you again and again, oh Arjuna, retreat not, because actionlessness is not something that you don't do. Actionlessness is your nature, but at the level of the individual, you need to participate in the world. And that participation will uncover so many loads that you thought you didn't have, which gave you the impression of a healthy human being, when in fact you weren't that healthy at all. You were, relatively healthy. And that relative healthiness gets refined by your participation in the world. Therefore, once again, there's no superior or inferior. There's only what is the right path for me in this stage.
It's looking at a lot of unconscious loyalties and realizing that they're really my own. It's like the higher I go, it doesn't have anything to do with the people that I used to have contact with. It's where I, gave into self-doubt. And I was looking at like just the position, how, that word imposition, it's like I'm a position, I'm standing in a position and I'm staying, digging what do you call that? Digging your heels in.
Yeah.
And holding and then you look at these birds in the sky and it's like they don't have to go to United Nations to change order,
Wherever you're positioned, wherever you're located, that is your place where change begins. There is no over there in United States or a different country or a different house. Really, it's always just been where change starts is where you are located right now. That is the place to start, with the people that we're with the environment that we're surrounded by, okay? Otherwise, see, the way out of this is like this. No, the nations, the GDP is going down, economy is going down, our president is not good, the politicians are failing us, the government is, the inflation is rising, the Federal Reserve is cheating us. It's just goes on and on and on. But really, what does any of this have anything to do with your life?
Yeah, so it's to come back inside.
It's to come back inside. It's like ultimately it has no real bearing. If you are a politician, if you can actually do something, then go. Good luck, make a change. If I cannot do anything, if I don't have that propensity to reach out and shake hands and be this, this confident guy, then don't even bother. Then what is my journey? My journey is my journey. My strengths, my little circle of influence, that's where the life begins. So this makes it so much easier to live like this, getting very clear, where do I belong? What is my strength and what is my area of speciality? What is my thing? What's my thing? That's where I begin. Anything else, that is not your thing. Don't worry about that. Somebody else will take care of that.
One other thing I want to say is like when you can't make a boundary with somebody because they're not rational and they defend whatever. They're just on a trajectory. They're just on a different bandwidth. And, so I'm just trying to learn, like, in my situation where I have to make the boundary. I have to go inside and make the boundary inside myself, and then just leave it. Just leave everything.
It's a very tricky question, Lisa, and I cannot give you a definitive answer because it's a dynamic, especially when it's people related. It's a very it's very dynamic. You're right. In one sense, you do have to protect yourself because if you lose yourself, now you've got two people that become irrational, and that's much worse than one person that is being irrational. So you absolutely do need to say, hey, what values do I stand for? What is important for me? Why am I born? Am I here to get caught up in 10,000 different things? Or am I to ultimately, though being caught up, ultimately I have to preserve that sanity in myself. And then preserving that sanity in yourself becomes what we call enlightened self-interest. It's not selfish. It's called enlightened self-interest. Because if you are at least composed, relatively equanimous, I'm not saying completely, but relatively okay, healthy to think about higher realities, then that's much better for you and for everyone else that you are still able to communicate with who's rational. Then if you allow yourself to lose yourself in, they should change, they need to, listen to me. The fact is they may not listen to you. And I've been in the exact same situation. No matter how rational you are, no matter how many things you try to do or explain, or you can even use AI to use every possible influence technique, when a person is irrational, you might find that, time is not right. Sometimes we just have to put a boundary for the time being, because time itself fixes a lot of things. So this means I put a boundary for myself and say, look, I choose not to engage in this topic, no matter what, no exceptions. I choose not to engage. But also, you also sometimes need to verbalize that boundary to the other. And you need to keep on doing it again and again. Otherwise, they will just keep on, thinking that you're still open to communication. Because if I hold it inside me and I just choose to disconnect, that's called stonewalling. And that looks sometimes, right, not completely appropriate to the other side. Now they think you're ignoring them. Now you trigger other things in them for them being abandoned or ignored. So might be better you could try to, verbalize, say, look, in this particular topic, I choose not to participate. And this needs to be firmly, no matter what your background is, firmly communicated over and over until it is gotten in the other mind. And don't tell me that they're not going to listen, because that is just your own narrative that you're telling yourself. Everyone eventually comes to terms if you tell them firmly enough.
I was thinking about, the basic personality things, introvert, extrovert. And and then there's part, I don't know where it is in the Bhagavad Gita, but it talks about that you should do your own swadharma. And if you feel like, well, I'm the certain way, I took this test and it said you're introvert or you're extrovert. And then I think, well, no, maybe I should try to be more extrovert, because, maybe I'm just like Arjuna and I'm just wanting to walk off into the forest and, just start meditating and, being all, Advaita about everything. So I just wonder, how do you decide whether to push yourself out of what you feel is your swadharma?
Sure. Sometimes you have to try the other way to get a sense of whether it is really your thing or not. That's a possibility. Such as, maybe it's the same principle with anything. Maybe you like cars or something, or vehicles. And now what do? You go to a, automobile shop and you just go inside a car and you just experience that for a moment. You see, what's it like to be inside this car that I want so much? And you get a sense of it. The same thing with spiritual pursuits. Sometimes we can just take a little holiday, be alone for a little bit, for a little while, whatever, hotel or some pilgrimage on our own, spend some time, figure out, what do I want? Figure out what is my path. Am I more of an introvert, extrovert, or I'm just both? Maybe there's no category here. Sometimes I'm more of an introvert with some people, and I'm more of an extrovert with some other people. Maybe I'm not even going to put myself in categories anymore. I am just at one stage, I need more of alone time. On another stage, I need more of, social time. Maybe that's another thing we might figure out. And then we drop the whole complication of having to put ourselves in this karma yogi / sannyasi category. Maybe you're both. Maybe you're a sannyasi and a karma yogi. Maybe you're a karma yogi disguised as sannyasi. Maybe you are a householder in a sannyasi, with a sannyasi mindset, right? All of it, all at once. Because a human being is so dynamic, it's so fluid. We change from moment to moment to moment. If there's one thing for certain, you cannot put yourself in any one category. That's called self-imposed limitations. So rather, what is it that I need right now? What is it that I want right now? What is it that suits me right now that I need to, fill my, my knowledge up a little bit, to fill my emotions up a little bit? What do I need? And then do that intelligently. Sometimes we just need to drive
Thank you.
drive the 100 meters from now to see the next 100 meters from now.
You just made me think, because we're always playing different roles anyway. So you go to work, you're a certain role. You come home, you're a certain role. You're a different role to different people. Yeah. So you can never react the same way to everybody all the time, because you have to act within certain boundaries in certain situations. So I would say in reaction, that's the only thing you can really control, the way you react. You can't control what other people, their input, because they've got their choices as well. So the only thing you can really do is react in the way that's truthful to yourself. And in that way, you can't reason with people that are unreasonable, like what Lisa was saying before. You just have to realize you can't rationalize, or you can't reason with somebody that's being unreasonable. So you just choose how you're going to react in every situation. And that could be different when you're at home, at work.
Yeah. Brilliant.
You can't react the same all the time.
And we don't have experience with every situation in the world, and they may throw you off accidentally. You say, I thought I was composed, but in this new situation, I'm not that composed, which is okay. We don't have to be hard on ourselves. Again, there's no pressure here that I'm supposed to be this wise, equanimous, non-moving, ever stoic person that gives this image of a wise man or a woman. This is false. It's not proper. How I am is what I do with it. How I am in one situation, how I am with another situation. Each situation gives you an opportunity to relook at it and then become more proficient at handling similar situations next time. It's that simple. Like I was at an airport, coming back from my retreat, and they didn't accept my plane ticket. And there's one thing that you expect after doing 10-day retreat is, Ishvara to take you home very smoothly and you have a nice little flight because, you deserve it. But my journey was as opposite as you can possibly imagine. There was some error, with the ticket, and I thought, and then they sent me 4 hours, to the counter, and I spent there just hoping, calling them monkeys in my mind, but also a little bit of Ishvara there. I did my best I could. And see, I'm being honest. I'm not saying, oh, this is all Ishvara's orders. Like, just get the job done, right? So you got to be honest with yourself. And what did they do? After 4 hours, they gave me a piece of paper, the same piece of paper that I already had in my email. And I thought, by hope, maybe there's some difference there that I can send back to the check-in counter and they will suddenly magically accept me on the airplane. By now, it was 1 hour towards the flight time, which I was already late. And then I knew already that they're going to have a problem, and they did. And now they wanted to send me back to the check-in counter where I just spent 4 hours, and I said, stop, this is enough. So I just said, I'm just going to sit down on a Delhi airport and figure this out. Now I'm exhausted, 24 hours awake, right, by now. And I'm thinking what to do. So I decide to say, Ishvara, why? What kind of papam is this? What kind of business is this? So I say, just go online and book another airline. And I did. Now I booked that airline, and after they take my money from the credit card, the final confirmation email says there's a problem with your order. It didn't go through. Please call this hotline. I'm like, oh God. God doesn't want me to go back to Melbourne. Something must be going on. So I'm like, okay, so let me now try out different numbers, because when you call Thailand Airlines, they got numbers for India, Australia, America. Which number to call? So I started calling every number until I could reach someone. Eventually, a lady from Australia answered, and I said, look, can you look into my order? This confirmation didn't go through properly. And they said, yeah, I just have to wait 1 hour for, to get confirmation. Now, of course, that's 1 hour extra waiting, thinking this is more monkey systems going on. But by now I calmed down. I was able to think and rationalize the whole situation and say, okay, at least now I've gotten the email that I'm going to go home tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now let me reflect upon all of those narratives I've had about those monkeys while I was waiting for 4 hours. Let me reflect upon all those not completely true notions. And ultimately, everything's okay. They're just doing their work. They're doing the best they can. The system's not perfect. They're not evil people. They're not, whatever they are. They're just people. They're just trying to make a living. So all of this I brought in while waiting for another 6 hours for my flight, or 7 hours. And I made sure, listen to this, I made sure that I extracted as much possible wisdom out of what just happened. I didn't leave. I didn't want to go to sleep until I thought it through in 20, 30 different possibilities. What about the people, about the entire airline system, about what it means to be here and not go home, about what it means to not have expectations that things are supposed to go right your way. I thought it through so well, and I took my journal down and I wrote, my goodness, here's like the best wisdom that I've gotten for the last 30 days. Let me write it all down. Let me write all of my discoveries, having thought this through, and I then meditated upon that. And that became the new part of Andre's thinking. And what happens next time? Exactly what I've been saying since the beginning. Next time something happens, you're now more composed because you thought it through. Therefore, everything that happens in your life is an opportunity to self-growth and self-discover. This is what we're speaking of. Real life challenges becoming your greatest blessings if you choose to make them so.
It sounds like you passed every single test they threw at you. Bravo.
Yeah.
Oh my, I would have lost my cool.
Yeah, I tell you, it wasn't easy. I gotta be honest. For every monkey thought that I had about them, I brought in one Ishvara thought, because I know, Pratipaksha Bhavana, you need to do this actively. It wasn't easy, but it was so worth it. It was like carrying a big bag. That's what it felt like. And then you just, after the Thailand finally confirmed their email, just unstrap button. And then you just feel that instant cooling down, that instant, I can breathe. And it felt really good. So it was
Bravo.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, Bhuvana.
Yeah, because I've told my 15-year-old son that God is always there with you. And he kind of said something very similar, that when I'm upset and angry, Mom, I don't feel God.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
What is the definition of self-discovery?
Self-discovery
What are we discovering?
Brahma, Atma Vidya, Brahma Jnanam. So this is self-discovery. Discovering the nature of the self. Atma Jnanam. Jnana Yoga. So self-growth is Yoga Shastra, right? Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishads Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastra. So Brahma Vidya is self-discovery and Yoga Shastra is self-growth. Therefore, interpretation 1 of these seekers. So even seekers of ancient time perform action for the sake of self-discovery and self-growth. That's definition number 1. And who else are these seekers? Seekers, interpretation number 2, who have gone through this self-growth and eventually came to discover their nature. They're called now ajnani. And therefore they come to realize their freedom from this body-mind instrument that's going through these, life situations. And they're no longer now, unlike group number 1, the mumukshus, they're no longer doing action for antahkarana shuddhi, even though antahkarana shuddhi is automatic anyway. but they're no longer doing that as a priority. That's called self-growth. But rather, they're available enough for the environment to be of service. We call this loka sangraha. So for them, the natural expression is, what is it that I can give? In what ways can I serve my community? And you serve your community. Now you might ask, what makes a wise person choose what they do? Or what makes anyone do what they do? But let's stick with the jnani. 3 things: your prarabdha karma, your swadharma, and your swabhava. Your prarabdha karma is basically the push that you came with, that general life trajectory, the kind of skills and talents that you come with, that makes you participate in some things and not participate in other things. That's prarabdha karma. The second one is swabhava. Swabhava is your natural disposition. Some people in this world are, good communicators. Others are good nurturers. You nurture. You're very good at supporting. You're a supporter. Others are good at teaching. Others are good at, facilitating the whole thing. So your swabhava is your natural inclination that makes you effortlessly perform that. Somebody else may find it very hard, but you have this, for example, I always wonder, how can you work with, how can, nurses, they're amazing. They work with bodies, right? And all the fluids and all that. Some of us were like, I would never do that, right? It's just, it's not for me, right? But a nurse is able to do that. So she has, or he has something that I don't have. For them, it's a natural inclination. For me, it's not a natural inclination. Yes, Lorena?
I can answer that. I actually just think it's part of the human nature to have all these things. Everything's included, including the bodily functions.
Yeah. Like this.
That makes it accepting. It's all part of the human experience. So, nothing phases you when you sort of keep that in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's part of, it's also the other side that we don't often see. But, in Lorena's case, some of us do see that, and we just accept it. This is how life is. And so that's swabhava. And swadharma is, as we said before, with every person, you have a certain position, you have a certain relationship. With your son, you have a different relationship than with your boss. So you cannot act with your son how you act with your boss, or vice versa. A different relationship you will have with your teacher than with your sibling. So naturally, whatever relationship you have with a person, your personality, your character has to, sometimes change. With your mother, you cannot act like some wise person, who's figured it all out. That's not appropriate. With your mother, you're just a son or a daughter. So swadharma is accounting the relationships that I have with people and the certain responsibilities that are expected of me to those people that I am associated with. That's swadharma. So now the question is, what makes a jnani carry on acting? What makes their body-mind continue to act in this world? The answer is, according to the body-mind's prarabdha, the body-mind's swadharma, and the body-mind's swabhava. And therefore, you still recognize the jnani, like Ramana Maharishi, is very different, those 3 components, than it is for somebody else. That's why you cannot dictate who is a jnani based on their lifestyle. Some are very active, some are very dynamic, some are very funny, some are very slow and contemplative and sannyasish. Some are very grahastish. Okay, so this is therefore the variety that Ishvara places, and then we have to respect the differences. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.